My name is Bill Eigenbrod. I'm the production designer on Joan of Arcadia, and I have been for the first 2 seasons. And I'd like to take you on a little tour of what we call the high school set, which is one of our permanent sets here at Sony. Now, this isn't the main entrance to the school. The school that we use is actually a practical school. It's over in El Segundo, California. But this is our interior. And we use this as sort of a side entrance to the school and a large lobby section. We've got an entrance to the exterior outside here. Staircase coming down from one of the upper floors. Doors to what we call the administration offices, which is just about any offices we might possibly need. And then we have hallways that interconnect all of these things.
And Annie, you took the tragic death of your little sister's gerbil and you turned it into, well,
Mama said there'd be days like this.
upsetting, ridiculous, and strangely sad.
This is the art studio and art classroom that Mary Steenburgen has here on the show. You might know it better as Mom. But all of these projects we have acquired both through doing the show, and also we started with a lot of them where we actually went out and had art students of the high school age kind of make them up for us. But it's a very crowded, very exciting art studio where somebody is always working on something. And if you know the show, you know that Adam has done a lot of work here.
I get it.
But we like to really kind of push it a little bit over the top, and we like a lot of color and a lot of action in here. Now, the hallways are one of the largest parts of this particular high school set. And as you see the show, you'll see that we spend a lot of time walking through these long, long hallways. So this was part of the original set here. This was our first year. We had this very, very long hallway with a staircase in the back with a window at the end of it. And Joan had her locker here and everyone had their locker here. So it's much like any high school USA in the sense that everybody has lockers, all the lockers work, everything is interconnected in and off this hallway here. The other portion of this hallway is behind us here. These are what we like to call the administrative offices. This is where we'd come for attendance. This is where we'd come if Joan gets pulled into the principal, which happens quite a bit on this show. So that's what all of these offices are. Now, one of the interesting things that this set shows, and this is true of a lot of television sets, is that these windows are called gimbaled windows. The reason being is that glass is very, very reflective surface, as we all know. And when the camera is trying to work, it might be difficult to get out of that reflection so that we don't see the camera in the background. So we put in these pieces of glass that will move on a pivot. And even with just a little bit of movement, we might be able to take a reflection off of a light or from the camera itself. And the funny part about them is they're a lot like car windows. These little edges here are called fuzzies, which you probably have on your car at home. And this little edge blocks the light, so it never looks like there's just a big pane of glass floating in an opening. So those are gimbaled windows. We also like to do multiple doors into each of the sets. The reason being, if we have different doors into each of the sets, we can redress these rooms easily or change what's inside them so that we can make it a completely different room. The other thing that's interesting about having multiple doors coming into a set is when the camera, which is the eye that you're watching this through, comes in from a different direction, quite often the set will look completely different, and it'll be more difficult to distinguish exactly where you are, which helps us a lot because we don't have 14 or 15 classrooms like you might in your high school, but we have 2. So we have to change them constantly, and we have to make them be different things.
Inside the building, that's a big change for you.
Look, I just want to say, I'm sorry.
I just don't get it, Judith.
One of the other things you might notice about the hallway is actually built as a large circle. And you can walk without ever going through a door all the way around the classrooms, through the lobby, and back through this hallway. The reason we do that is that a lot of the show is walking and talking. Joan might be talking to somebody, and then they're walking along in the hallway. And by doing that, it allows the camera to continue as far as they want to go. They could go around 2 or 3 times. You probably wouldn't even notice that they've gone around. Or they can go, stop, turn around, and come back the other direction, and it would look very, very different every time they do that. So we build these, or I like to build them in circles so that we can get around easily and continue the action for as long as the director wants to do things. Now, if we continue down this hallway, one of the things that I really like about this school is this brickwork. They're only about 1/4 of an inch thick, but they give a great look. It takes a lot of really special, talented people to make this stuff look as good as it does. So in terms of geography, we're now directly across from our other art classroom, and this is what we call the physics classroom. Now we call them these things because most of the time, this is the physics lab and that's the art classroom. But all in all, over the seasons, they've probably been at least a dozen different classrooms throughout.
Matter, antimatter, energy, fission, fusion, muons, bosons, quarks, neutrinos, antineutrinos, dimensions, determinism, strong force, weak force, relativity, velocity, chaos, order, air, fire, water, love, sex, death, time, space, and God.
Will the final be comprehensive?
Now, as we come out of this classroom, we've actually made a giant circle, as I was talking about before, and we found ourselves back in our lobby. The lobby is a little unusual too because the lobby is a very tall space. Most of the spaces that I've taken you through are about 10 feet, 11 feet tall. This one is about 16 feet tall. The other interesting thing about this set is that we use a lot of different glasses. Up here we can see that we've got what's called wire glass, which is something you might find in a lot of regular high schools. Over here we have a different type of glass that I don't know if you can catch the light through it, that's a rippled glass. And in different situations, we use different glasses to either augment an amount of light coming through a window or to deter what we see behind it. In other words, if you were to look through these windows and I pulled the blinds up, you would just see the stage wall about 4 or 5 feet away from us. But because we can backlight that glass and light through the blinds, it looks like daytime outside. So there's a lot of different ways that we can control what's exactly outside. Now, another way we can control them is by what we call backings. Now, backings are like giant photographs that we put onto big muslin or big, in this case, they're big plastic walls. If you look out the window there, it looks like there's a building outside, but in reality, that is just a giant photograph. I also like to put in a change in level. This is a lot like theatrical stuff. When you have different levels, you can imagine Romeo and Juliet, you have the balcony and you have below. But it gives the directors the ability to play high-low and in different angles and increase their choices as to what they'd like to do for the scene.
Yes. Joan, guess you're probably not interested in reading my mission statement?
You have a mission?
Absolutely. Excellent draftsmanship, by the way.
When we're designing for television, we kind of have to take into consideration that we may have anywhere from 10 episodes to 50 episodes to 150 episodes that take place in basically the same area throughout. And you just never really know where the camera might want to go. In a feature film, you can plan that out very specifically. You can say, this is where the camera's going to be for the first scene, and then we're going to be over here for the second scene. In television, that may be true for one particular episode, but you've got the potential to have hundreds of episodes that you're going to have to position the camera to. So we like to try and make things interesting from almost every angle and almost every possible scenario that you might run across, whether that's people entering from outside, from downstairs, from a hallway, or from a classroom. And it's just to give the idea that there's a lot of possibilities for what we're going to do.